Hi, welcome back to our channel, Two Brothers Opinions. My name is Barry, this is my brother Mark.
Yep. So today after we had just downloaded the RFK assassination, we thought we'd do JFK.
Okay.
So I know that you had done some research on that, and we're going to change the format up a little bit. We're going to give you a lot of our data, a lot of stuff that we've researched, and then at the end, we're going to give you our opinions on what we came up with. So I think all along we've been giving our opinion as we were going along, but I think we're going to change the format up a little bit and see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll do some facts.
Yeah.
And then we'll do some theories and then our opinion.
Yep.
So let's see, November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas. JFK was shot and killed by a so-called lone assassin.
Right. The story at the time was Lee Harvey Oswald, sixth floor, Texas School Book Depository, lone assassin. Immediately, within a very short period of time, happened to know he was sitting in a theater and went and found him.
Oh yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
I don't know how they knew he was there, but
That's what I was saying.
And in the meantime, before he actually went to the theater, they say he also shot a cop. Tibbetts.
Officer Tibbetts.
Dallas cop, Officer Tibbetts. Yep. And supposedly eyewitnesses that he did it, and then he went to the movie theater, and that's where he was arrested.
Yeah. And you had told me something about why he went to a movie theater.
Yeah. Well, back in 1963, things were a lot different. Technology, no cell phones. People used pay phones. So supposedly, from what I heard, that movie theaters were a place where CIA would meet people to exchange information. It was dark. Somebody would come next to you, sit next to you. You give them an envelope. They maybe give you cash, whatever. Exchange information, and then you leave. No one thought otherwise.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that theory before.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. I got a couple things written down here. The weapon used was a rifle, Italian, Mannlicher Carcano, 6.5 millimeter, and which wasn't the best rifle in the world to use. And
I saw he bought that for $19.95.
Yes, and he bought it
at a
online, not online, but
it was a gun. It was a gun store or a gun supplier or whatever.
Mail order.
Yeah.
Mail order.
I think it was, yeah.
Because you used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Years ago, they had guns in Sears.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Up until probably the 80s.
Yeah.
Those rifles and shotguns at Sears, you could go in and purchase it. And ammunition. That's all gone now.
Yeah, we'll get to the ammunition part because there's an interesting thing about that.
Alrighty. Anything else? You just want to go down that list?
And then we'll come back.
Okay, no problem. Let's see. There was a lot of eyewitnesses. There was a gentleman who worked in the train yard that saw some suspicious people. There was I don't know if it was 3 or 4. They say hobos, homeless guys, people that traveled the rails. They were arrested, interviewed, and released. And one of the important factors that was overlooked is they had clean and polished shoes.
Yeah.
Which hobos usually don't.
No, not all of them.
And supposedly he saw a guy get out of a car, take a rifle out of the trunk, dressed as a cop, and was at the fence on the so-called
grassy knoll.
There's other things that I have in there, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole yet.
Well, all right. So yeah, that's the story. The story was basically lone shooter, but then you have all this other stuff. We have other eyewitnesses. I think the Zapruder film was they didn't count on that.
No.
So you had that, but there were other videos that have been out there, and it's funny that we never heard. We only saw the Zapruder film.
Yeah, and cameras. They confiscated. FBI went and took everything from everybody for evidence.
Yeah, and interviewed a bunch of people who I would say a majority of people were all pointing to the grassy knoll, saying that the shots came from there.
And one of the things is I saw this on History Channel. They interviewed a guy that, remember, that's not long after World War II and Korea. This guy was a combat vet in World War II. he knows what a gunshot was. He went running towards the grassy knoll and pointed. So, I mean, combat vets know the difference between gunshots.
Yeah, and directions and things like that, where they come from. Yeah,
or maybe a backfire of a car.
Yeah. So yeah, you got, even on the Zapruder film, you see, which is interesting because I'm reading another book. It's a book on by Brad Meltzer, the JFK conspiracy. It's about another assassination attempt on JFK prior to his inauguration by
I never even heard.
By a Richard Pavlik who lived in New Hampshire and had bought basically dynamite and was going to do a car bomb. But in that, oh my God, I forgot where I was going with it.
Wasn't he a postal worker?
Yeah, he was a former postal worker, lived in New Hampshire, hated the Kennedys.
First time they ever
went postal. Maybe, who knows?
This guy.
But he went. He hated the Kennedys, and he hated Christians, Catholics.
Oh.
Yeah, I read that. I was reading that again this morning. So, we get this one version of what supposedly was going to happen, but then when you start reading other stuff, there was another book that the Men Who Killed Kennedy, and it was a case against LBJ.
And that's by Roger Stone.
By Roger Stone, and in that he names people, and he talks about the mob, the connection with the mob, and the CIA, and LBJ, and there's other videos out there that I think it was Glenn Beck just ran on his program the other night, where there's this
cassette tape.
The original, still the original cassette tapes, talking about how LBJ basically ordered the hit. So you start. And
they name names.
They name names. They name shooters. I mean, it's amazing. So the more we start diving into this, it's like, okay, so now we have the original version, and then you have like a Roger Stone version, and then you have another version, and you wonder, like, the more you dig into it, like, I don't think, I'm not sure we're ever going to find out exactly what happened.
No, and Trump declassified. They released them. They were supposed to release them unredacted.
Yeah, but
and they're not.
No, not all of them.
Not all of them. And I want to know why. Are they naming names in this investigation, and these people are still alive?
Supposedly,
if they are, they should be arrested.
Supposedly, most of them aren't, though. Although, as Glenn Beck said, the people aren't alive, but the agencies still are.
So there you go again.
The CIA. So going back to, I mentioned when you were talking about the ammunition that Oswald used, they tracked, Glenn Beck on his program tracked the ammunition to, it was CIA ammunition that went to Greece, that was in Greece, and they requisitioned some of it back at that time. And
it was only available because they brought it into
this country. It back. They brought it into the country. And so the fingers point to CIA involvement
again,
over and over and over again.
As we said in our last video, the Robert Kennedy, CIA, the guy, it goes to the CIA, and then Martin Luther King, CIA, and Malcolm X, CIA, and when we get into Reagan, CIA.
Yeah.
And they're not supposed to operate on this continent.
No, but I think we said last one, by law, they're not supposed to operate on U.S. soil.
At all.
It appears. There's also...
otherwise.
Yeah. But there's also connections to the mob. And we'll probably get into that. I know you have something about that.
I got that on here. And Cuba.
And Cuba, right. Bay of Pigs goes all the way back to, like 1961.
61. Yep, Bay of Pigs was March. April of 61.
61.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't born then, but yeah. I mean, I could get into it a little bit if you want.
Yeah.
So, let's see what I got here. So Bay of Pigs was April of 61. And basically what they wanted to do, and this was a CIA program with the Defense Department.
Yep.
They wanted to go in and invade Cuba. So one of the reasons why, and Kennedy was dead set against this. One of the reasons why it failed is because they were supposed to go in and bomb the airfields so Cuba could not launch any of its aircraft. Anybody in the military knows you need air superiority to take over the air so your troops could come in, especially in that type of an invasion back then. There was a airfield in Nicaragua with unmarked B-29s loaded with bombs that were supposed to fly out of Nicaragua, go to Cuba, bomb those airfields, and come back to Nicaragua. At the last minute, the person in charge of those aircraft were told by Curtis LeMay, who ran the Air Force, do not let those planes fly. Why? It's a mystery.
Well, you know what's interesting? You got a stand down order like that, and you know, in recent history, where was the last stand down order where they wouldn't let planes fly? Benghazi. So there's a connection to the CIA in Benghazi too, because supposedly we were running guns. And that's why we were there. But when you just said that, I'm like, okay, we get a stand down order. Well, we've gotten other stand down orders. Why? It's like, what outcome do they want? And I think
it was supposed to fail to make Kennedy look bad.
Right. I was just going to say, for Bay of Pigs, that was to make Kennedy look bad.
And another thing is Kennedy wanted to pull out of Vietnam.
Yeah.
He didn't want our troops over there.
And he wanted to dismantle the CIA. He wanted to get rid of them.
And there was troops in Vietnam in the 50s.
Oh yeah.
Late 50s. They were there. Advisors.
Yeah, advisors, yeah.
There's advisors in Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
Because I know we're getting off a little bit, but it's just information. There's American advisors in Ukraine when they launched those missiles into Russia. They didn't know how to operate that stuff. Our guys went there and showed them how to operate it. Probably maybe even press the launch key.
You never know.
How close are we to war?
Oh yeah, all the time. And that goes back to the industrial complex, you know, the military industrial complex. Like,
again.
Why are we always and that's why I think they go after Trump, because he doesn't want to have wars.
No.
You know, unless we have to. Unless it's absolutely necessary for our protection. And I think the people who are the military industrial complex, they want wars because it's money. Lots of money.
A lot of lobbyists involved down in DC pushing for these contracts.
Yeah.
Well, we did talk a little bit about the rifle and the ammunition. I'm not sure if people that are watching this going to know who I'm going to name right now. Sergeant Carlos Hathcock. He passed. He's dead. He was the best sniper in Vietnam. Period. There's a book out called 93 Confirmed Kills. Read that book. He could not repeat the cycling rate with the actual rifle, the Mannlicher Carcano, in the time frame that they say Oswald got off those shots.
Three shots.
3 shots.
Which they know the first shot missed everything. Hit the ground, and some cement kicked up and hit a little kid or something.
Hit a guy.
It was a guy, yeah.
Yep.
So they know that the one shot...
Standing on a bridge, one of the overpasses.
Right.
Which he shouldn't have been there.
Right.
So the president's coming down, and you're on an overpass. The president's in a convertible?
Well, that's crazy too, because they took the top off that car. And I don't know if you noticed, but I get it. One of the other shows I was watching, when they came around the corner before they came down on that straightaway, there were Secret Service guys running alongside the car. They all stopped. They all stopped at that corner.
I never noticed that.
The only one you see when he's hit is Clint Hill, right? The Secret Service guy that was climbing on the back. You know, I always thought, well, he was part of the president's detail.
Yeah.
He was Mrs. Kennedy's detail. He was her number one guy.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, the book I'm reading. He was Eisenhower's protectee, right?
Oh, wow.
like protector, right? When Kennedy got elected, they switched him over, and he thought he was going to be JFK's, and they made him Jackie Kennedy's number one guy.
Okay. See, I never knew that.
Yeah, and
myself.
he was there when she went into labor and they had to do an emergency C-section. He was there. Like this Clint Hill was with her all the time.
Wow.
He was her number one guy. So when you see him climbing on, I always thought,
Yeah.
and she was climbing off.
Never knew that.
But Clint Hill and her were connected.
Now, Dan Bongino, who's now the
Deputy director
of the FBI, on his podcast, he was Secret Service.
Yep.
And he said it. You never slow down. That route would have never been, because
Yep.
he did that. He
Yeah.
did that for, I believe, Obama.
Ambush.
But he was the transportation guy.
Yeah, he was.
He said, you never do that. You never go down there and slow down and take these turns. That route is a no-no.
Yeah, well, especially with those buildings with all the windows. He goes, that never would have happened.
Never would have happened under.
But it did.
But it did.
And
Okay.
and they sent him down there at 11 miles an hour.
Yeah, no. A Boy Scout with a pea shooter could have took a shot at it.
definitely, if it's a if it's a plan where there's 3 teams of shooters,
Mm-hmm.
you've got them maybe in a crossfire.
Definite crossfire. But now you're talking about a lone gunman.
Right.
And that goes back to the Warren Commission.
Right.
And we could talk about Dulles.
Yeah, because
I'll let you go to that.
well, Alan Dulles was CIA
The director, right?
director, and Kennedy fired him. Later on, when you had the Warren Commission, guess who was the head of the Warren Commission?
Let me guess. Dulles.
Dulles.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting.
What a coincidence.
That you would put a guy who was just fired by someone.
Well, coincidence.
Yeah.
We talked about that before. Remember we said I always have my enemies run my place.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Run
Let's
my,
get the people who
company.
really hate me to
Mm-hmm.
investigate what happened to me.
Amazing how that works out.
Yeah.
Let's see what I have.
And that's where Dulles Airport comes from.
That's right, it does. I didn't even realize that. Bay of Pigs, Grassy Knoll, we talked about that. Do you have any other information that you wanted to talk before we go down what our opinions are?
Well, yeah. In the man who killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ that Roger Stone wrote, he names a shooter. Now it's different than some other theories that are out there, but he names a Johnny Roselli, who's was a mob guy. That he names Johnny Roselli as the shooter.
And Zinaval.
Yeah. But you were telling me that there was a cop that was looking at a sewer.
Yeah, so what I heard is there was 3 teams of 2, and the fatal shot came from the sewer that when Kennedy was coming down the straightaway, there was a sewer, and that's where the fatal shot came from that blew his head off. It wasn't from behind. When you get shot from behind, your head is going to go forward. It's not going to go backwards.
Right, and
everybody knows that.
In the Oliver Stone movie, JFK, I mean, in that scene where they're in the court, you could see Kevin Costner playing the role, saying back and to the left, back and to the left.
And there is a picture of a Dallas officer on a motorcycle cop, looking down the storm drain.
Yeah. Because
people pointed and said they heard something come from there.
Now the other day I just watched the video and I can't remember the name of it right now. It's actually on my phone, and but anyways, you can find it if you Google some stuff of a video where the driver of the vehicle, it looks like he turns around and shoots Kennedy.
I've seen I've seen that video, but not in that understanding of
because
the driver did it.
Because it's grainy because it's so old, but it looks like a gun, and they said that it was the CIA at that point was using an air powered rifle, air powered pistol, with a special round in there that also had biologics in it. So if the shot didn't kill you, the biologics would eventually kill you. And there's a theory now that, and maybe other people watching this already know this, but there's a theory that the driver of the car was the fatal shot.
And you told me that when Jackie Kennedy started climbing on the trunk, it wasn't to retrieve part of his
Right,
skull,
which was the
brain,
story, right?
Which was the story. It was to get away
To
from
get
him.
away because she thought she was next.
Yeah.
Because if the driver, which I don't understand why Connolly, who was sitting in the front seat, Governor Connolly, who got shot, why hasn't he ever said, "Hey, it was the driver"? I mean, he was sitting right next to the guy.
Don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. So then you think,
yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what was said? Hey, if you don't say nothing or your whole family goes,
yeah,
you don't know the threats.
you don't know. I know. And so
It's
then
politics.
So
dirty
then
business.
then you go to, okay, all conspiracy theories, you have to clean up all the evidence, and you have to clean up people. So we see in the police station where Jack Ruby comes up and he takes out Oswald,
who had a connection to.
Jack Ruby had a connection to the mob. I didn't write it down. I don't remember the guy's name. But he had a connection to. I can't remember. Yeah. I told you right before we started this. But there's a connection to the mob in Louisiana, and Jack Ruby was known to have. He ran
not a brothel, a strip club.
A strip club.
Basically a strip club.
In New Orleans.
They called it something else.
Right, in New Orleans.
Yep.
And so if you're trying to take out Oswald, who said he was a patsy, then you have somebody else like a Jack Ruby take him out. The mob probably sets that all up. And now there he goes. And then Ruby doesn't say anything and dies in prison years later. But there was also a picture. The guy who has this same video has a picture at the time of the shooting with someone that looks exactly like Oswald wearing the exact same clothes standing on the sidewalk. How can he be on the 6th floor if he's standing on the sidewalk?
Well, Roger Stone said that the guy that he names as the shooter, the guy's fingerprint or thumbprint is on the 6th floor.
Right.
Where the supposedly shots came from.
Yeah.
How come we don't know that? See, Roger Stone, if you know who he is, Roger Stone is highly connected to Nixon.
Very connected
to Nixon. And has a lot of contacts in the government.
Yeah, and actually said that Nixon told him one time that Nixon said, well, of course I wanted to be president and LBJ wanted to be president. He said, but I wasn't willing to kill people for it, and LBJ was. So there's a history of LBJ with murders. A lot of people
on that tape, that guy says, I killed for LBJ before.
Yeah.
And I do it again.
Yeah. So
whatever he told me to do, I would do.
Yeah, so if anybody ever wants to take a deep dive into LBJ, I think you find some stuff that you won't believe.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's amazing. All the theories. There's so many things that cross-reference too.
Right, and that's the thing. And so Glenn Beck the other day was saying that it's not who killed Kennedy. The question you have to ask is why. Because you get to why, then you get to the CIA. Most times.
Most of the time. And then you also get to organized crime, mafia, and then you also get to Cuba.
Yeah.
They tried to assassinate Fidel a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch.
You go down too many rabbit holes. And I don't think what we said earlier, you're never going to get the answer.
No,
never.
So I think, are we at that point now where you want to say, okay, well, we presented all the information.
Yeah, we're about 20 minutes in, 23 minutes or so.
What would be your opinion based on what you know?
What I know, my opinion, there was 3 teams of 2. My opinion. One of the teams was Cuban. I think that they killed him because he wanted to shut down the CIA. He wanted to pull out of Vietnam. And he also wanted to go back to, was it the silver? Something with the money. It was based on gold. He wanted to do the silver with silver. Not just print money and put it under. Well, actually, later on it became under petrol. And I think that was under Nixon.
Yeah.
That was later.
Yeah.
But he wanted to go back to the silver.
So like the gold standard or the silver
standard. The silver standard. That's what he wanted to do, a silver standard. And getting out of Vietnam was stopping people making tons of money. Because what happens is a lot of these politicians, senators, congressmen, they invest in used aircraft And I know a guy. I know a lot of guys. That's an Italian saying. I know a guy.
I know a guy. Yeah, I
But
got a guy.
I do know a guy that was on an aircraft carrier when all this was happening, and they would get loaded up with UEs, helicopters, in the crates, and halfway over they'd push them overboard and get new ones. Get new ones later.
Yeah,
these are brand new, and they're just pushing them over, getting rid of them,
so they can
buy more.
Yep.
That drives the stock up, and that makes people rich.
Yeah.
Blood for money.
Yep.
Your children dying on a battlefield in a foreign nation, whether it's Vietnam, Iraq, we could go down that rabbit hole too, in Afghanistan, for money.
Yeah. My opinion is they wanted him dead. They did not want him to be president, and for a lot of the reasons that you just said. But I think it comes down to, this wouldn't be the first time that our government did stuff like this.
Yeah, Lincoln, McKinley. Wasn't McKinley?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that the president that had when our country was pretty much in a full of money, and it was all trade.
It was all
tariffs on trade.
It was all tariffs. Yeah,
and they killed him.
Yep.
Yeah. Jeez, who does that sound like?
Well, some of it too is like, why did I think the assassination attempt on Trump? How does this young kid run around on top of a roof, get that close, fly drones, and nobody stops him? And then he has like six phones with encryption that runs through foreign countries, and he's like a 19-year-old kid or something.
Yeah, and cell phone ping in an office in DC.
Yeah.
And then they cremated the body like a week.
Yeah, real quick.
They got rid of it.
Yep. Every time.
The whole house was wiped.
Yeah. Every time you see that, every time you see like something happens and then boom, that body gets taken care of right away, I gotta think it's definitely our intelligence. We'll call it our intelligence apparatus.
Yeah. Semi-intelligence.
Yeah. But I tell you, I don't trust the government. They spy. I was telling you that they actually wiretapped Barry Goldwater when he was running against LBJ. Then Tucker Carlson's been wiretapped. Trump was. I mean, they were spying on him.
Yeah.
Our government will do what they want to do. It doesn't matter what people vote in or what the average citizen wants. They're going to run this country the way that they want to run it. And I don't trust our government at all.
No.
And that's to me where it's come down to. It's not about who, what, where, when. It's like the overall picture. I just don't trust the government. Now, am I gonna, I'm not gonna do a Rosie O'Donnell or any of these idiots and move out of the country because it's my country, and but I just don't trust anything that they say, anything that they do.
Both parties, by the way.
Both. Yeah, this is everybody.
And I think they hate Trump because he's putting a kibosh on everybody. Take.
Yeah. I mean, they're going after Pete Hegseth. Why? Defense.
Yep.
They're going after Kash Patel. Why? FBI. Everything that and all these money making deals. The Department of Education, which
USAID
has failed. USAID. There was and I forgot the name of it. It was called ICA. I forgot what it stands for. They were the outfit
original
before the USAID.
Before the USAID, I heard that.
And they were doing the same stuff.
Yep.
Money was going to them, and they were funneling it here, there, and everywhere, doing all other kinds of stuff, trying to overthrow governments. So
that's what happens.
It's crazy.
That's why they took Gaddafi out.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand Lockerbie came from Gaddafi, but he learned his lesson when they bombed him. Reagan did that. They killed one of his kids that were in one of the houses.
Yeah.
But then towards the end of his life, they wanted to overthrow Gaddafi. But what they don't talk about is the way he ran his country. Free elections, Christians were protected in a dominant Muslim country, free electricity, free healthcare, free schooling. If you wanted to open business, he would help you. So there's a lot of good things. You don't just pick the guy and say, well, he did Lockerbie and they took down. Yeah, I understand that. That was terrible. And he had something to do with that. But let's hear about the good that he did. They got rid of him. Remember Hillary? We came, we saw, we killed him or whatever.
Yeah.
Hillary, and Madeleine Albright. I call her not too bright or half bright.
Yeah.
And there's another one too. We try to find her name.
Yeah, I can't think of her name.
And she's another one
But she's involved in all this stuff.
all the wars.
You see her name pop up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
She was big in the Obama administration.
Yes, very big.
And I know Dan Bongino used to mention her all the time. I can't remember her name.
Can't think of her name either offhand.
Anyways, okay, so that was our story on JFK.
Yeah, so you got a lot of evidence in the beginning.
Yep.
You got our opinions,
at the end, which is what we're going to try and do is like give you stuff and then give our opinions of it. We both think that there was obviously this was intended.
Yeah, we agree on that.
Yeah, it was intended.
The way, the means, the people. My idea might be different than mine.
Yeah, but
the outcome came out.
The outcome, is what
He's
it
dead.
is. So
he's
all
dead.
right.
And I did get a comment from a viewer, and we are going to try to do a subject where he thinks totally different from me.
Yep.
And we're working on that. So because we seem to be in agreement on a lot of things, I mean, we're brothers.
Yeah.
And we grew up just a few years apart.
Right.
And our ideas are very similar in our beliefs. But there are some things we do have disagreements with. And that's what we're going to try to work on. I'm going to make my case, he's going to make his, and then it'll be up to you to figure out which is better or which is worse.
Yeah. And if it comes to fisticuffs, he'll win. He's younger.
Yeah. I feel older.
All right.
But anyhow, thank you very much for watching this, and don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We appreciate everybody's views and opinions, and anything that they write down, we will try to respond.
Yep. And as we always say, don't let anyone silence your voice, because you have a voice, and you should be able to say what you want, or without any fear of any kind of retaliation.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Keep your voice strong and don't let anyone silence it.
That's why it's the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thank you very much.
See you next week.